yesterday, he's planning to.
He is planning, he responded to me on that. Okay, so in 1 minute, I'm gonna start the recording, and there is Ray, right on time.
Karen,
Yes.
I got a email from Samantha following up her.
Oh.
Hey, Ray.
She sent
That's correct.
Williamstown's cottage court bylaw.
Oh,
So I don't know if she copied you, but
I
she did.
don't remember seeing it.
Well, look,
Okay, since it is 6:30, I am going to resume.
Recording in progress.
Okay, well, it is 6:30. We are promptly starting this special meeting of the Village of North Bennington. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss budget items. At the annual meeting, the public votes on the entire budget, up or down, not individual line items. So this meeting is an opportunity for any of the public who is so inclined to comment on any specific issue that we're talking about. The agenda has laid out that we will talk about the highway department, the fire department, parks and recreations, including the tree committee, and then we will end up with all of our general expenses, which are our legal and communications and salaries and depot repair, things like that. We also are going to specifically discuss creating a new reserve for emergency planning. At the moment, our budget does not have any allocations for emergency planning, and the Planning Commission has been working on designating a site within the village to be used as a gathering spot, not an overnight spot, but at least a gathering and rest spot for several types of emergency needs, not necessarily everything. And so here, let me admit Tara. Okay. And so this reserve would begin to set aside some funds for necessary equipment to do that. And again, just so that the public can weigh in, it is a special reserve. And so this is opportunity for public to comment. We do not have members of the public here, but we will just start. Now we're going to jump around a little bit out of order because I think our Norm from our highway superintendent may be dialing in at some point. So let's jump right down to discussing the creation of a new reserve fund for emergency planning. Kim Hall, co-chair of the Planning Commission, will address that request. And please, you're welcome to come join us at this table. There's plenty of room.
The trustees have been sent a couple of meetings ago, I believe, a preliminary list of emergency supplies for these local needs. And some of them are free and available, and some are going to cost money. And we have addressed some of these issues with the school in a meeting yesterday with the principal and with the head of the prudential committee of the school. And there was a consensus reached that a memorandum of understanding will be written between the village and the school entity. I'm not exactly sure who will sign that on the school side. Identifying the relationship, because without that, there's no FEMA reimbursement. So all receipts associated with an incident will be maintained by the volunteers associated with that incident, and then reimbursement would be possible. The list includes large cost items, what's considered large in your world, but a trailer for storing supplies and moving them to the school, electrical work at the school, both engineering and the necessary connections for an emergency generator, the generator itself, propane tanks that are associated with running that, potentially other electrical supplies so that we can have sufficient number of outlets within the space. We don't need tables and chairs. The school has an abundance of those. Although this is not meant to be an overnight stay shelter, it would be for power outages associated with heating events, cooling events, snow events, windstorms, flooding, whatever it might be. It would be a gathering space for the village and would provide respite for those who are gathering here. So cots and cribs might be a reasonable addition to these supply lists, even though it's not an overnight stay area. But medication refrigerator, a small one would be necessary. First aid supplies. And we'd have to talk to a provider about what would be appropriate. Masks, blankets. There's no air conditioning at the school. There's heating, oil heating, but there's no air conditioning. And so I doubt we can afford, at least initially, to air condition the auditorium space. It's a large volume, very high ceiling. But nevertheless, it is a slab on grade and is partially underground, so it should remain relatively cool for an extended amount of time. We may need a trailer for transporting water in bulk from the water department's reservoir to the school. That's potentially a substantial amount of money. And then ice maker, I think for heating events, we wouldn't need that. And then incidental supplies, animal crates and masks and gloves and so forth. So my recommendation would be that as we look at the emergency reserve, we anticipate several of these high-cost items over several years, requiring maybe, I'd say, $15,000 per year as a reserve. That'd be my 15,000. That would be sufficient to get us started with the trailer, and that's probably a year's worth of the reserve right there. I don't know the cost of the generator because we need an engineering study first. So an engineering study might be less than 5,000, I would expect, something like that. Then we would have the electrical work, that might be close to 15. So it's going to take a number of years to build up to this being a workable solution, but doing something is so much better than doing nothing. And I leave it to the trustees.
So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Quickly. So 15,000 to jump in is a big number. That would be our third largest reserve on an annual basis. There'd be only 2 reserves that are higher than that currently. So to jump in at 15,000 in our budget is substantial.
Okay.
Do you have, so on one hand, I hear you're talking about a trailer and this and that, but a reserve is to be built up. But if you're
Absolutely.
saying building buying a trailer, that's not really a reserve, you're looking for a line item budget. So I guess I'm a little confused as to what route you're taking.
Well, it's partly because, first of all, we need a decision as to the intent. Do we have the intent to do this? And I don't know that the trustees have made that determination yet. We have offered this as an idea. The progression of the expenditure of money would probably begin with an assessment of the space by an engineer. I don't think it'd begin with a trailer and supplies. Because first we need to know how we can equip the space.
So,
Cause my,
So it would not be 15,000 being spent the first year.
right, but so when, like, we started a reserve, just for example, we started a reserve for a new mower last year. That reserve's not gonna be touched for 5 to 7 years. So if we're calling this a reserve, but yet we're gonna be spending the money on an annual basis, even a part of it,
Yes.
I don't think we really are calling this really as a reserve.
I would say this. I do believe, in my opinion, yes, voting to set up a reserve is one thing. The amount that you put in there is a different matter. Because just like our tree reserve, we still are gonna be using and cutting down some trees. We may not be using all of it. You use a little, you fund some back, you use a little, you fund some back. So I don't think I think it's two different things to say, set up a reserve. The discussion of what to fund for that is one matter. Then the discussion of what to set for a line item of expenditure is yet another matter. We will also be, the planning commission will also be, in conjunction with BCRC's help, looking for grants that may
Right, cause that was.
be available
too,
to
'cause
cover
this-
some of
This
this,
seems like a
but not all of
grant
it.
opportunity.
Some of the FEMA grants that were around last year, we're not looking at a FEMA shelter.
Right.
You know, so you've got to be kind of specific, or we have to pick and choose. I wholeheartedly agree with Kim's assessment that doing something is better than doing
Oh, I
nothing.
agree with that.
It will take years to get this, even as it is, in discussion with the BCRC's, expertise. We could, with minimal expense, other than engineering and things like that, we could at least have a limited use gathering spot for limited types of needs. Not comprehensive, but very limited. So my first thought would be, if it's not jumping ahead, but in the interest of time, I would like to make a motion, because setting a reserve is a specific obligation of the trustees or the municipal board to vote to set up a reserve. How you fund that, again, is a separate matter. So my first motion would be, I would like to make a motion to set up a new reserve for emergency planning,
So moved.
needs. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Matthew, do you have any, you came in a little late? No, I see a thumbs up. Okay, all in favor? Okay,
So then
so
what I'll-
we have
what
that
I'll do-
reserve set.
Yep, as I do with everything else and as we go through, I have the 15,000 in here,
Yes,
and then usually I'll do 1 or 2 or up to 3 scenarios.
yes.
So 15 would be the number, in a perfect world.
And
Could I make a quick suggestion? That you just took care of some major bookkeeping to establish the fund.
Yes,
Should we vote to establish the relationship with Kim, that Kim was referencing with the school districts?
I would do that.
we didn't warn that specifically.
Okay.
But we
So that would
can
be appropriate.
include that. That will be a topic that we will include for next Tuesday.
Because I think
Yes.
establishing
Yes.
that on paper.
Absolutely, we totally agree with that.
For
But we're a little bit putting a cart before the horse, but this is the opportunity to get in a warned meeting. We mentioned it in the last meeting that we were thinking we were going to be discussing a reserve. It is specifically warned in this meeting to set up the reserve. We have done so. Next meeting, we can finalize what the dollar amount of that reserve will be, and then affirm that relationship.
Good, that sounds great.
Does that
That's great.
make sense?
Sounds
Okay,
great.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Anything else you need from us? I don't
No,
think so.
I've just let you
Okay.
know that there is a meeting on December 11th with V-Trans concerning dam safety. And we don't have a specific time yet, but
We will put that on next week's agenda as well, even though it's only a 1-day notice. But the agenda is set so people can see that ahead of time.
Did you say it was here in the village somewhere?
well, it's that they're willing to come to North Bennington, so our venue,
Would it be here?
I believe this was information we got like an hour ago.
Oh.
So, yeah. Thank you. All right. I'm going to, seeing nobody else here, let me jump back to this top and start taking this somewhat in order, if that's okay.
Yes.
Norm is likely unable to be here, but he met with Doug and I last week, and then Norm and I met again the other day to talk about specific projects. So suffice it to say for right now, we have agreed on a line item amount in the preliminary budget of $100,000 for the whole category of road repair and maintenance. That includes sidewalks, it includes culverts. That number was $95,000 last year, and what was it the year before, Doug?
It was 90.
90, so we're just progressing that up.
I can,
And it's about 1 penny, $5,000 is about a penny on the mill rate.
before you go,
Go.
I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay. Doug is gonna share a screen here. And while he's doing that, we also have a couple of other projects on tap to,
There, you see the spreadsheet?
yes, we can,
Right.
I can.
projects to do projects to do this year, out of this year's budget is, we've kind of done all the major road paving for this budget, but there are some culvert work and there is some sidewalk that will be done out of the current budget. The sidewalk is from Bank Street to the school on Church Street, on the school side of the street, putting a sidewalk in there. Then following that, Norm will be working on the steps on West Street and that marble sort of pavement at the top of the hill. Uncertain yet, but exactly what that repair will be, but it is unlikely that it will come down to street level and put a sidewalk on street level, but it will at least improve that and make it safer. Next year, there was a couple of potential sidewalk projects that Norm and I had discussed. Mechanic Street, kind of a stretch, but if that grant comes up, we'll look at that one again. The other one is on Houghton Street to have a continuous sidewalk all the way from Main Street up towards the park. And that may or may not involve removing trees and doing some work on the church property there. But all of that is preliminary. Suffice it to say, there is a list of projects to be done. The other thing that we discussed, which would be a huge, big meeting unto itself, is to learn more about the offerings of the Vermont Bond Bank and look at a large, literally $1 million bond to do a whole section of road that would need to be really dug up and redone, which would be College, Madison, Mechanic, some of those other little streets all around that section. Long-term project, not to be included in this budget. I mention it because we're just very interested in thinking long-term.
And the other piece of that Norm brought up was potentially doing one even larger, Mary's saying, doing Hall Street.
Yes,
So potentially doing both bonds as one bond, if you can. if
Oh,
you can
doing
get it
both instead of one or the other.
Correct,
Okay.
right, so you would
Thank
discuss
you.
the options and see, it might be better and more prudent to do one large instead of two half. Because as Norm always says, if the crews are here to do a major project like Hall Street, you're gonna get it cheaper to have, especially the pavers, to do the other projects. So if we can tie them all together in one bond, give the obviously bid the contract, but I say, so the contract is for one large job as opposed to separate jobs. So that is, on the radar, we'll say. The studies for Hall Street should be coming, I know Norm had said one of them came back, he went back to them with some changes. So that is still in progress. So Norm's kind of idea was, hey, once we get the final numbers for what Hall Street would look like, then maybe tying this extra, and then most of your roadway would be all recently paved, on top of the ones that have been done over the past 3 to 4 years.
and then we also have to consider when you're looking at paving a road, does it make sense to do a nice paved job if you don't have the proper ditching and culverts on both sides of the road? So
Or water lines.
all of that.
Right, Norm brought up
Yeah.
all this sewer with Bennington, water with water department, so it would be, and again, that's not really a discussion for
Right.
tonight, but
No,
that's, if you see the paving bond there, that was just a mental
Yeah.
note,
Right.
for more of the, like Mary said, the long term.
the point is for the public to know that we are very interested in looking long-term, 10, 15 years out, not just 2 and 3 years out, to come up with a plan that works, not just for us, but who else is,
Right at the top.
I don't see it. Oh, I see it, thank you,
Um,
thank you.
Before Ray has,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna hit the other ones really quick, and then,
And then,
because there's not too much other change, I'll just kind of hit the
Please.
highlights. Wages, we've typically been doing about a 5% increase on the total wages. So that covers things like the part-time employee, pay raises if voted and approved by the trustees. So that's just kind of the standard. Health insurance, we had the number, so I have a pretty good idea, for that increase for one employee, and then the other employee has a separate, item. New equipment, Norm said we're in good shape right now, so we just had a small increase of $500 there. I'm just kind of looking down. Equipment maintenance and vehicle maintenance, slight increases. Oil and gas, slight increase, again, just the unknown of the pricing. Garage expenses, Norm was happy to keep it level. We decreased it last year, and we're on track to be a little bit lower this year, so we kind of just kept it for there. Salt and sand, knock on wood, we came in under budget last year. Norm recommended we go one more year at that number, which is 36,000. So then if we get 2 years of under, we may decrease that number. But Norm was a little hesitant to drop that number just after 1 year.
We don't do a reserve for salt.
No, because it's all,
it's just a line.
yeah, it just comes out every year. Employee retirement, there is an increase to that based on the new format that's being used. And there was, when the final numbers were voted upon, for the amount to be raised by taxes, there was an increase to the highway budget, which was technically earmarked for that increase. So I just carried that number over. Slight increases to the reserves. this coming fiscal year, it's weird to say, but it's 25 to 26. There's no new equipment purchases, so there's no new truck, no new mowers. The following year, which would be the 26 to 27, is the next truck replacement. Then 2 after that is the big truck.
Highway.
This is all highway.
In,
Yeah.
in the current budget, which has not yet been spent, there are funds for a permanently installed flashing speed sign. So Norm is looking into that. We are going to be purchasing another one of those next year, so I don't know if that got into the equipment line or not. It might just be
I
embedded
think
all
we
in
just,
there.
I think Norm felt comfortable with having it in there.
Okay,
Right,
but just for people who are concerned about the traffic, we are going to be adding these little things as we can.
Purchasing one in this budget cycle, and then
One in this budget and then one in the next budget cycle.
process.
That has not yet been determined. I'm sure everyone will clamor for it in front of their house.
Yeah. That's
There
right
have
in
been
front of mine.
proposed areas like
Yes,
coming up Water Street, coming in from
it
67.
will definitely be in the, major, in the main entrances to the village itself.
Probably.
We're not gonna ever get everybody to go 25 in around here.
so those are the items.
Thank you.
for highway.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Ray, did you have another question, or did I answer your question? Okay.
Okay, let me just, go ahead.
I just have some questions about the, what you've got up here. And so the highway maintenance, about halfway down, you may have explained this, but the actual is twice of the budget.
In
How
the
does that?
prior year,
And we can't see the
Yeah.
top, but
Yes,
that's last year.
yes,
oh, sorry, yeah, here, let me scroll down. So, yeah, if you're going left to right, fiscal year ending June 30th, so the highway maintenance, that was part of the paving that we actually used from one year to the prior year, and part of, the non-culvert grant work. Am I saying that right?
yes, yes, yes. So if Doug had scrolled down, you can see where we list the income or the revenue for that type stuff.
Oh, I see. So for instance, the, scroll back up there, the, sale of equipment,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that negative 201 means that's
that's a
201.
good thing.
That's a good
Yes.
thing.
Yes, so that was, Norm had sold a couple of the bigger pieces of equipment after the culvert job was done.
Nice.
So we always there'll be a $2,000 placeholder on that line. Because Norm is always using the government surplus program. So there's always going to be sale of equipment, so we do keep a placeholder there, but we don't rely upon it as income for the
Yeah.
budget, because typically it goes right back into another piece of equipment for the next job that he has coming along the pipe.
we just try on here to show expenses in total and then revenue separately. So it doesn't net together.
Yep,
Okay, so we discussed
is that good, Matt? Anything else?
the list
No,
of, there are culvert projects coming up, there are sidewalk projects coming up, and, and traffic calming is always on the list. Fire department,
Yep.
you want to talk about fire department?
Absolutely. So I had a very good conversation with Chief Myers yesterday. He had a couple of meetings this evening. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it over. Obviously, I don't see him here, so he's not, but we went through his budget. So for the most part, he has a good handle on everything. Most of the line items are very similar from prior year. I'll just go down the line again. Officer drill pay, he has changed how he pays that out, which actually makes a lot of sense. They used to do a very, very small amount for every person who did drill. They have eliminated that, and they're working on folks who do more. So if somebody does the state reporting, they get a stipend.
Okay,
If somebody does the tracking for their gear and things like that, because they have inspections that come
Yeah.
through, that person gets a stipend. So I said, however you want to run it, absolutely. He said, yeah, no, it's great. So he felt that the number that was there, which was just over 3,500, he said, nope, that works fine for what his plan is going forward. Kind of the same thing we just talked about, within the, highway. They have 3 separate line items. One is new equipment, one is gear replacement for the department, and one is gear replacement for the firefighters. So those are all staying very similar. Chief Myers has been working to get the turnout gear, as we all know, replaced. He does feel with the number of volunteers that they have and the gear that they've been replaced, he's hopeful that within this next budget cycle, he'll be up to date on all of those. So we're keeping, we went down a slight from 12 to 10 there. I did want to keep that in there in case he gets 1
Yeah.
or 2 more that he
Yeah.
needs to do, but he's done a great job with that. Training, same thing. He feels with the folks that he has there and what training we need on Horizon that it's a good number. Fire truck maintenance is where he would like to see an increase. That number has been the same for at least 2 years and probably a couple before that within. What he has and what he explained to me right off the bat, $1,000 of that goes towards their annual air pack inspections. It is what it is. They can't do anything different. So if you look at it, that leaves them $3,000 for actual truck items. They also have a ladder inspection, which is a $500 to $700, depending on who we can get to come and do it. So again, we're up to almost half of their budget. Now he knows not the brand new truck and not the small truck, so the in-between truck there is gonna need new tires within the next 12 months. So we talked about going up to 8,000, which for the department I feel is more than warranted and fair.
right.
Gas and diesel, again, kind of the same thing we talked about. They've come in under budget, so we did decrease that a little bit, to 5,500. Firehouse expense, this is another line item. It did increase based on budget. However, when the amount to be raised by taxes was voted upon, there was the $7,000 from the prior. So I carried that over into the new budget. It would, in essence, be a level fund there.
7,000 prior, is that?
The expense. So it wasn't, there was 3 increases.
So you're carrying the same number.
Exactly. Right. But if you look at the budget, it looks like it increased, but it was the voted upon amount to be raised by taxes.
Okay, so one of that, I thought that amount voted on included the repair to the dam.
Nope, that's a separate item.
That was a separate one,
Yep,
not the
we have
dam.
another one for this,
Okay,
dams and water.
Good,
Yep.
okay.
Can I ask a question about fuel supply? Do they have a contract with somebody for supplying diesel?
They use, I believe they use, what used to be Paulins, which is Buck Stop in Shaftesbury, and they have the card, and Lori gets a statement every month for that. So yeah, I don't know that it's a contracted dollar amount per se, but it's
I'm
the,
just wondering if the relationship.
Doug, are you asking for the trucks?
well, I know where they go, but I don't, it's not, is it a contracted amount, Lori?
No, it's Global Montello. And it's a division of Buck Stop. So, for example, this month it was minimal, and other months it's a couple $100. But you're talking about fuel for the vehicles, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Global Montello is the one who they deal with, and they get a lower rate for that, and it's
that's
subdivision
what I
of
was
Buck
asking.
Stop. Yeah. Yep.
thank
Perfect.
You're welcome.
Then the reserves, again, based on capital planning, they were due for increases. The one large increase, the small equipment reserve, The next batch of items that Chief Myers sees down the coming forward is going to be the air packs, which have a little bit more than 10 years left, but obviously we want to get out in front of that. Those total 80 to 100,000 for full replacement. So increasing that reserve over the next 10 years, and we'll be in good shape, because we have a small equipment reserve, but we don't want to limit it just for the air packs, because obviously they have generators and things like that.
So there was a repair or replacement of a compressor this year that we paid for, right?
Maybe. I don't know off the top of my head.
That's what I saw in a warrant.
Okay, it could be, yes.
I assume, I don't know whether that was a repair or replacement, but, we're not going to be replacing that again. I expect. So, I don't know, yeah, I'm just curious about whether that was actually a replacement or just a repair.
Okay, yeah, we can find that out.
It appeared in there.
It was just a repair.
Okay, thank you.
But over the next few years, we also are probably going to see a little bit of a shift as we improve the efficiency of that building.
Yes.
So that'll be.
Yeah.
So that was one of the discussions that Chief Myers had too, was, you know, over the next couple of years, the firehouse expense line hopefully could go down, and we could shift those funds to other items, you know, preferably reserves, obviously.
And you mentioned that Chief Myers is developing that list of specific pieces of gear so that we can make a spreadsheet, much like we have for the,
Yes.
for the highway.
They don't have, right, and they don't have nearly as many, because a lot of
Yeah.
their things that they use within the trucks, they use it until it's time to go.
Exactly.
So that's where the small equipment reserve, we don't want to limit it to the air pack, so if we just expand that
Yeah.
reserve.
But
those
as long
types
as
of
there's
things.
some idea of the things that eventually will go in there. Good.
So yeah, I mean, that was a
Okay.
good conversation that we had, and where he's at.
Thank you, and thank Chief Myers.
I like hearing that.
Yeah. On then to Parks and Rec and Tree Committee. Thank you, Mark. Mark Boudreau has showed up. So first thing we want to look at is whether there are any upgrades or repairs to the recreation facilities or to the parks itself. You want to go first?
Yeah, you've been here longer. Oh, no, you go ahead.
I'm just trying to go in line. I'm just trying to go in line.
You guys can flip the point, right?
Yeah.
There are, I mean, first of all, thank you guys all very much. Norm, I will be out there somewhere in Graceland. The field down there was fantastic.
Doesn't it?
The amount of money we saved doing it that way, and the amount of work that it is. Incredible, and thank you, Ken, and something. Just amazing what it looks like right now. In terms of moving forward, there's a few things that are a couple of low ticket items and then one higher ticket item. Mainly at Lions Park.
Okay.
That swing that you mentioned, Mary.
Yeah.
I've been looking at it to see if we could, it's been there for so long, I doubt we could repair it. So if replacing that would be anywhere between $250 and $2,000.
Can we use our reserve for that or?
Absolutely,
Yeah, okay.
I don't think we need to change
Okay,
the amount we put into the park.
okay.
I came mainly because I had no idea what's in there.
I can
And
tell
I
you.
know there's some outstanding bills that we don't know are gonna come to fruition out.
And Mark, can you get closer to the owl? Lori can't hear you.
Sure.
So while you're coming up here, so we have in the Parks Reserve right now, the asterisk is we haven't finished welling, so there could be some movement, and we knew there would be, but right as of October 31st, which is the most recent balance that I have, a touch over 41,000 in Parks Reserve.
So that could be dramatically dropped. Is that?
But we still have ARPA funds that we have not used, that are earmarked, probably about 40,000.
Okay. The higher ticket item, we have that one centerpiece at the skate park.
Yeah.
And then there was a request for another platform on the half pipe. those could get to the 15 to 20,000. The one that needs to be done is the little center island. I have no idea what to call this piece of equipment, but anyway, they can, over time, the platform is settled, causes a lip at the enter and exit points. So for a skateboard, it's
That
small.
would be dangerous.
Yeah, so it could be a hazard at some point. Repairing it, I've talked to Mentroni,
Yeah.
put the pad in, repairing it could cost more than, they just don't have the equipment to do it, to get somebody in there to do that. It's probably not feasible. So I called the skate park company that put it in. We could potentially get that done for around 7,000-ish,
Okay,
which isn't crazy.
A new one installed. Is that what you mean?
Say it again?
A new one installed?
Not a new one, what they would do is, so the issue is
Or
settled
they
into
fix the old one?
well, what they would do is they would actually, the easiest fix, they add a centerpiece and extends it out past where the lip is formed. Which means potentially in, I can't remember how long it's been, 15 or so years or longer since the park's been in, the same issue could happen again. But we have no way to repair the blacktop that's in there without potentially pulling that piece of equipment out, tearing out, re-blacktopping, which could be even more.
Okay, so it's,
So right now,
in my
the
mind,
fix
it's
is,
more of a repair than a replacement.
it's kind of a combination, yes. It's a replacement, so they would add a centerpiece that would make the structure a little bit bigger, which means it gets it out past where the issue is.
They're recapping.
Not recap, so if the piece is this big, what they're gonna do is they're gonna add a piece that's this big. So now, right here where the enter and exit are, would be pushed out to here on what is now good blacktop.
Yeah, but isn't that
So-
just putting a new cap, basically?
It's a new actual piece.
An actual piece, yeah.
Yes, but kind of, I understand what you're saying.
It's
Yes,
a piece of structure that's added on.
exactly. So just, it moves out, they plop a piece in the middle, and then the whole thing's just a little bit bigger than it is now, I think by 3 feet. So 1.5 feet on
And
it,
that would be how much?
around $7,000.
It seems like,
so,
I don't know what it
It's
is.
a steel structure, yeah.
Yeah, it's
a-
steel, okay.
It's,
Yeah.
so it looks like,
everything is expensive.
it looks like Doug's got as a placeholder here, an increase, a $2,500 increase. Because we've put $5,000 on that parks maintenance line forever and ever and ever. So
And we
there
put
is a little
5.
bit of that's not a lot of an increase, but
And we still get 5 from the town of Bennington.
6.
We have 6.
6.
Okay.
So what I did just again for, the wish list and the first draft.
Hmm?
So I increased the parks maintenance budget to 7,500 from 5,000. Thought being, we probably won't need to do much to welding. It's gonna be, pretty new, because that'll be the separate money. So that would be there. And then I made a note of potentially using 15,000 of the reserve to do the larger projects.
Mhm.
So you'd have 7,500 plus the 15, and over the winter, then, over the next couple of months, I'll get a handle on the exact ARPA funds that are left. Norm can get a handle on what he thinks he's gonna need in the springtime to finish that.
Yep.
Difference, if there's a difference, would come from Parks Reserve. So then I can tell you, well, the trustee, obviously, hey, Norm's gonna need to use X from the reserve, so we still have Y.
Perfect.
And then we can figure out what pieces of the puzzle can go that way.
Did you say that new piece was $15,000?
No, so that's gonna be around 7.
Okay.
And then there was a
The
request,
little, additional,
Just the additional
yeah,
little-
that's 7, but the other piece,
so they're half pipe, they wanted a bigger platform on one end.
oh, I
So
thought
we
that,
come in and
okay.
exit to land.
Okay,
They were hoping to extend that, that's another 7,000-8,000.
oh,
As a
okay.
request, that's a wish list, that's not a
Okay.
need.
Right, and that's where I came up with the
When we're
15.
talking about $15,000.
Yes.
I personally think that's doable, looking at this budget and knowing that.
And the
we still
truth
have
is,
some-
like everyone knows, if we're gonna do one,
Do
do it now and
Yeah.
don't wait,
Yes.
because then you pay more later.
To come back.
Just forget to come back.
And a couple $1,000s for a swing can go in here easily enough.
Yep, and the other would be to resurface them, so over time, the surface of the equipment gets worn out, more slippery, so they have a coating they put on it.
Okay,
That would be, if we do the pieces, we could probably have them come and recoat it at the same time. Otherwise, we would have to buy the material
okay,
and do it ourselves.
okay.
It's a two-piece epoxy
Yeah,
type
yeah.
thing that I'm sure would drive them on crazy.
Let's just do it.
So I'll,
Have them do it.
when we figure out more about the money,
Okay,
it would be a late spring project anyway. I'll get because that quote was also good until like 6
Okay.
months ago, so
okay.
I'll get a requote and I'll come in front of you guys.
And if it's, well, there's a couple of things that I'm wondering about. Number one is, if need be, we can use this year's money and a little bit of next year's money,
Or just dip in the reserve.
or dip into,
There's,
if we
I
don't
would
dip into the
probably
reserve, okay,
dip into the reserve before you
Okay.
start spending next year's money in case, just because it's already there.
When you said late spring, though, I'm thinking it could get into the next fiscal year.
Well, I think he's talking about 25, 26, right? For the
Yes.
most part.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
So this is not something when you're thinking late spring, not spring of, well, it would be,
Yeah,
it's spring of
it's up to 25,
Right.
yeah, but not the 25, 26 budget. Okay,
right.
all right. And then
But we still would need to, I mean, I think the increase to 7,500,
Yeah.
like we've talked about,
Easy.
makes
that,
sense.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now,
And
the
then
other,
the other project is the reserve problem.
if for some reason something happened, are the Lions able to help with a small donation?
that's where I was going next.
Okay,
Yeah, so
if
they,
need be,
they've talked to me already, they're ready to spend some money there,
okay,
but I think they're talking about like $1,500
okay.
is what they have.
Maybe they can help.
And that's like where the chips, so we
Oh.
need to put in some, we have to measure it out, figure out how much. Those companies that do that, they have a minimum load. I was looking today, actually, just when I was counting, you can actually get them from Home Depot as a per yard. So I might be looking to go through them instead, but again, in the spring, we'll look at that and they would be willing to, and I've got a tractor I could spread, that's just gonna cost the material. If they would have volunteers, I would do it and we'd just spread it there.
Okay,
That's wood chips
Yeah, but they have to be certified chips for the playground,
certified.
so they're splint free, they do it a certain way where it's safety, the material's not toxic, it's, yeah. So yeah, you have to have certified, you can go another route, but if something does happen, then you're on the hook.
Yeah, well, interesting to find out what it is, what we're talking, because I'm not clear, so like,
So there are several different, but we did a wood chip, so they're basically just wood chips.
yeah.
So it depends on the type of wood.
the preparation
I'm sure,
of it.
yeah, I'm sure all that goes into it.
Yeah.
They have rubber pellets that they use for some.
Yeah.
But we would probably just use the same thing we used in the past, because you just put it on top, you level it out, put it on top, done.
Okay.
I have a
and the last
question.
thing-
Yes, he's,
I'm wondering,
Matthew has a question.
I'm wondering what Mark's perspective is on the new skate park in Bennington and whether that will affect the usage of our park, or what, what's,
Yeah, it very well could. But, I mean, with the amount of money we have invested in it,
Agreed.
I think I get your point. For the $7,000 to make it safe, if we have one kid that gets hurt on it, we should probably invest it now.
Yeah.
If over time we find that nobody's using it because the one in Bennington's better or more convenient, then it might be a talk, that the discussion might be, do we take it out, give them the equipment, and we do something else with it? With that space, but I think right now,
seems like what they're doing there is like a real bona fide thing, right? With the concrete and everything.
yeah, I drove by, I mean, I've looked at it, I don't know the plan, I haven't really looked into their plan and what the equipment is they have, but,
It's probably the old street.
But then
yeah,
again,
it's kind of one of those things,
Yeah.
we've got it
it's a
here,
lovely thing.
it was, locally invested, it was locally generated.
We have numerous parks, we have two libraries. We want this to be a walkable community, so kids
Yeah.
can walk right over here,
Yeah.
which they couldn't walk downtown.
Yeah, so I think over time, Matthew,
Makes
you're
sense.
right, we should probably look at maybe in the next couple of years, just once that's finished, is what kind of use are we getting?
I think you'll
And then
still,
certainly-
I think it, you know, it's a nice intermediate thing, whereas the Bennington one might be more, you know, more for older kids, or I don't know, but I'm not
I think
against.
what it might provide too is for those that are less confident and don't want to be in a crowded place, it might be that one that offers a smaller type experience where you're not intimidated and things, because ours is actually very small.
I was just gonna say, we might have the opposite happen, is that the one at Bennington might get so packed that it's gonna push people over here.
Yeah,
You know, and like you just said, of people who are more intimidated by a larger crowd, or Matt said, more experience, because it definitely looks like they're putting some high-end stuff up.
yeah. But I think you're right, Matthew. I think probably in the next couple of years, once it's done and we see kind of the patterns happening, it's definitely worth a discussion on what, if we need to adjust.
Pickleball. That's
Well,
that's the
yeah.
next trending thing.
Yeah,
When does that open?
I'm not sure. It looks like it's fairly far along,
It's
possibly.
supposed to be late spring, early summer.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're benefiting right now because they're still able to work
Yeah.
with the weather. But, yeah, that's what I'm saying, they're definitely benefiting from the weather right now.
I know a skater, and a lot of skaters like to put different parts to the road. Don't use both.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fun, especially with the improvement they can save.
Yeah.
And like you said, different levels of skating gear, make it a little more. Gear.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't see people, skate, kids use a lot now, like skate falling off.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, no.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, if we come to it.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Well, I have a question going back to, well,
Yeah.
Laura, can you hear?
Oh, yeah, come closer to the mic.
at one of
Is that Jeff?
Yeah, I can't hear Jeff at all.
He's coming.
Yeah, you got it.
One of the meetings, Ron mentioned, I think that there's gonna be where the bank is higher there, more fill packing in there. And I was just thinking in terms of trees, I don't know what your thoughts are on trees near the field, if it's free or anything, but if there's a bank there, like they did at the housing project, past Lake Parent, plant trees there, the whole, you know, the, full the soil there, it's a prime opportunity to put some trees along there.
So the benefit of that would also be with a soccer field, if there are trees there,
Yes,
it would knock a ball down from getting too
right,
much further. So
yes, yeah, so,
are you talking about like a bank friendly, like actually in the bank or on the top?
yeah, something, no, not on the top of the wood shed roofs on the fields, but I'm thinking like halfway, it's a pretty long bank.
Yeah.
Steep, and if there's more fill there, you know, or to put that in, maybe plug in some trees halfway down the bank.
Give spectators some shade too.
Yeah, so the benefits I can think of there are one, ball retention.
Right.
Two, shade.
Bullshit.
Three is,
Holding the back.
Also,
holding the bank and stopping people from driving up there. I know right now it doesn't look like you can,
oh,
but
yeah,
I'll tell you what, we've had people drive up on that field from crazy places, so
yeah, yeah.
the potential's there, sure.
So
I've done
that
it.
was my,
When we do the fireworks, right?
it's be a nice opportunity to get some trees in there.
So I did get a question on the fireworks. I think obviously this year, the ideal would be,
Parking lot.
well, either behind where the dugouts were,
Oh, okay.
if there's a space there, there's space, or in the fishing access parking. I would probably head to get on that field also, so young,
I would, totally agree. Plus,
especially with all the work that,
it's hot and it's, like road flares,
yeah.
it can really damage it.
And then lastly, just I don't want to get this, I'm gonna start to investigate the kind of the next phase there, would be baseball.
Okay,
Um,
excellent.
And I know there's interest in the Bennington youth leagues and everything, so that's down the road a bit.
Excellent.
But it's coming.
I just thought,
If you build it, they will come.
I think it's fantastic, absolutely amazing.
I'm telling you, baseball right now,
Yeah,
you know, baseball, you build it, they'll come.
Yeah.
well, especially with the new, Little League, Bennington Little League.
Yep.
Where they put the indoor little training facility in, guy from the Red Sox.
Are
We,
there still bleachers there?
At,
At the,
well, there was a set, I don't know if they've moved them. They need repairs, so
so there'll be some upgrade to,
the idea for the baseball would be some bleachers, fixing the dugouts, and getting a infield established again, because right now, we don't.
so the truth for soccer and baseball.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And the way they did it, we could have, two full fields, multi-purpose fields, and baseball. So
That project would likely be 2 years hence.
Oh, gosh, we're,
Yeah, or more.
unless baseball wants
Yeah.
to fund
Yeah.
it, which they've done in the past.
I mean, we need at least a year plus now to get this field going.
Yes, oh yeah, get it
Yes.
established, things like that. And I am gonna talk to the high school about using it for soccer.
Good,
Cross, whatever else.
Good.
I also wonder, you mentioned sort of art, whether or not they would pay for trees.
we're not, I don't think we're anywhere near that discussion yet.
And when I say leftover, it just means they haven't been used, because Norm still has bills that are gonna be done in the
I
spring.
thought this might have had to be spent by the end of
However,
It has to be, so just so everybody's clear, because there has been questions out in the greater world about ARPA. Your funds have to be earmarked by the end of this year, so by 12/31, which we are.
Right.
We're fully earmarked. They have to be spent by 12/31/26, which we will also be for that. But yes, you have to be earmarked, or you'll see things happening where you can vote to use it on prior payroll during the pandemic. And then it goes to your general fund, which is what Shaftesbury voted to do. So they just moved it from their ARPA to their general fund, then they'll have a fund balance to do what they want to do going forward. We won't need to do that.
So right now, that's earmarked for one field.
Well, in
Yes.
field, and there's one other small project needs to be completed from one of the local.
Which honestly, if there's another small one, because we took up so much of it, I would give them priority.
Well,
Well,
Yes.
we have it,
Unless, right.
yeah,
not for this discussion, but we have everything allocated. And because we had a small amount, there was a special designation in terms of allocating it. So we do not have to track every single dollar to project A, B, C, D, and E, as long as they're municipal projects. But we had in mind how some of those funds would be used, and we did also have a couple of our little small traffic calming projects included in there too, so, you know. The idea though of what else to do to enhance that field is a good idea. Let's just get all the ideas and then we'll
I think that's
figure out how to do
something I'd
that.
be happy to come to.
That would be a lovely
Probably late
addition.
spring sometime. to see how
That
it
would be a
actually- yeah.
lovely addition to do in there.
It'd be a nice addition.
Yeah.
So.
And it kind of is a good segue into a tree committee discussion, because
Sure,
that's what you're thinking of.
exactly.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mark.
guys. See.
See,
Thanks, Mark.
would the trustees consider, increasing their stipend since it's been 5 years? I look back at the government's, numbers that over the last 5 years, cost of living has gone up a little over 20%. So our last increase was 5 years ago, this next year. So I was wondering if we could get a cost of living adjustment to the tree committee here with annual stipend, since you're thinking about budgeting.
Where are we right
We're
now?
at 1,500, it was 1,000 3 years, it went to
Then we
1,500. And so I was thinking either 1,800 or 2,000, whatever you guys would, at least throwing it out there for consideration.
Yeah, I think we should round that up to 2,000, at least
And
for purposes.
you consume that every year.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, that one,
But then we have to look at the
So
other
the-
tree removal.
yeah, so two different ones.
Yes.
The tree
That's a different
committee
category.
falls under the, payments to other organizations,
Right.
and that money goes directly to the committee.
Yes.
Then we have two line items, within Public Works. We have tree removal, which we have budgeted at 5,000. And we have a tree removal reserve fund, which we started 2 years ago, I believe. And I have that as of right now slated to increase to 2,500. I had the tree removal level funded as of this discussion.
That's for trees that Norm,
These
Norm
are,
and Jeff work together to determine.
Like Andy said, there is trees along Park Street, we could probably spend $50,000 removing trees
yeah,
that are hazardous.
They're-
But it's good to have that reserve fund, you know, because certain trees do pop up and, you know, as we get more money in the reserve,
and the entire policy, the tree policy
we need to,
has to be done, and by statute, that is something that the tree warden should be writing and presenting. But I've reached out to a couple people in the state to get a template of what other places do. The few templates that I've seen are things that are just never gonna be applicable for our 2 square miles.
Yeah.
And so then there was supposed to be some quick facts for handbook thing that is on a website, but it's not there because it was taken off, so they could redo it. So as soon as that comes back, we'll have to get a tree committee together and talk about
tree
policy.
warden.
Okay.
I'd like to nail that down too, because when people call me, it was the tree warden, which is separate from the tree committee, that's a nonprofit. Tree warden, people call me and I'd like a concrete thing that I can tell them.
Yeah.
As far as our responsibility.
That is out there, and that is in the statute that I've sent before, but I can resend it to you. That's not, that statute was written a few years ago, and that's pretty much out there. What the specific things that a tree warden would do.
Okay,
We can look that up and get that back out
so
to
the
you,
stipend is for the tree warden, or for the
tree committee.
the tree committee.
For years, the tree committee, which is a separate nonprofit, we've received money from the trustees, and then we do other fundraising, and we planted 70-some trees. around
You're
the village.
basically using that for trees.
Yes.
Trees and maintenance.
What is the criteria that you guys use for planting generally?
Trying to improve, you know, the aesthetics of the village. Basically, you know, if you drive around, a lot of the trees that look like they've obviously been planted, not just volunteers. The tree committee's been around since the late 80s. Short Aldrich.
Yeah,
And,
they
Maurice Allen
started.
started. And, we became a nonprofit maybe 20 years ago. And, you know, the village looks different now without the tree committee. I'm confident of that.
Just curious.
There's no sales pitch.
Yeah, all right.
We got you.
Okay, excellent, we'll do that.
And then
And the,
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
tree
this is where the
warden
dam water is.
Yes. Yes, okay.
So I slid again, I slid that
Leave that in.
8,000 that we
Yes.
had voted.
Yes. Yes.
Now the budget override.
Asked me, whatever years ago, if I would cover that.
Right.
So that I would let Norm.
you guys designate trees that need to be removed.
The board working with Norm, usually. Okay.
Yeah, Park Street, all those old maples are starting to age out.
And speaking of Park Street, that culvert is still, well, the second culvert that needs to go down
To the end of the road.
at the end of the road, that's gonna be one of the 2 grant projects that we get for culvert type of work. But then the other one that we all did our
Field trip?
our field trip out there,
Yes.
that is still absolutely on the agenda, and that one will be one that Norm and Kyle will do
I
as
thought
their.
that's the culvert you're talking.
No, there's a culvert that has to go down. Remember when we walked to the end of Park where it meets up with Water Street and there was a culvert that went across that Water Street?
Oh,
Not Water Street, what is the,
You mean,
Highland,
you mean Park Street intersecting with
River.
River, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, so there's yet another culvert that has to go down beyond River. Yes,
in the park itself, there's a culvert.
yes.
Okay.
So that's gonna be one of the grant projects. Then Norm and Kyle
Yeah,
will work on one.
I think I heard Norm mention that.
Yes. And at that point, there will be a number of trees that will have to come out,
Yeah. Okay.
as he showed us when we did our field trip. Okay,
All right?
Okay.
thank you,
Thank you for considering.
thank you, of course.
Thank you, all you do, Jeff.
Yes.
Government.
General expenses we're looking at now, and so why don't you walk us through what you've got, and then we'll see what.
Yeah.
anybody else has.
So, again, I'll just kind of go from the top down for this one. Village office, I went to 24,000. It was at 22. We had we had gone over in 24, but there was some expenses that were moved around, with ARPA. So you can see that there was some ARPA revenue that was used to offset some of that. So that's not a true number there. The one thing that is definitely going to be happening sooner rather than later, we will be getting a copier here.
Yes, yay.
I spoke to a gentleman today, I won't name the company just yet, because we'll talk about that on Tuesday. I'm hoping to have, the exact figures. So he actually he's in Vermont. He actually works with 17 towns and municipalities already. So he's well aware of what we would need. First question he had for me is, do you have land records? So I said no. So he said,
Good.
we can fit. And I'm going to talk to Chris when we're done here about some of the paper sizes that he'll need, things like that. So that will go into there. So he agreed, just to so this will save a little bit of discussion on Tuesday. We will definitely look at it as a lease.
Okay.
He said it makes much more sense for the size that we are versus to buy one outright. And then, within the lease, you have unlimited printing, copying, all that. It covers maintenance, so if something breaks, they come and fix it. That's all within the same lease. Toner, parts, everything.
Good.
And then whatever your term is, if it's a 2 or 3 year, you get the new printer, copier at the end of that and go with the new one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes a lot.
Exactly. So-
Thank you,
Technology keeps changing.
that really is
Right, and
necessary.
it'll be better for the budget too,
Yep.
instead of having to buy a $10,000
Yeah.
copier versus, how much every month it'll be.
Yeah, we can't afford it.
Exactly.
Oh, that's wonderful news, thank you.
So the village treasurer, village clerk, village secretary, village bookkeeper, 2 of those are me, 2 of those are Lori. I do have increases, I shouldn't say raises, increases in there. There wasn't one the prior year. The number of things that the clerk and the treasurer / bookkeeper now have to do just continue to increase. So it's based on those items. I'm gonna leave trustees' fees and expenses for the end of the conversation.
You just multiply it by 5, that'd be fine.
Right, exactly. We'll leave DRB, and Chris and Tara can talk there. Depot maintenance, that's an interesting line item for this coming year. So we have, right now, this fiscal year, $49,000 budgeted because there was work to be done
Yes.
on Depot that had not been done. So Norm was not sure when I met with the gentleman was gonna be able to get it done this year. So we may have a fund balance that we would carry over.
Yes.
Because it was specifically earmarked to do that, the work on the depot, which needs to be done. So I took the amount that we actually spent in the prior year, which was $20,380, and budgeted $20,000.
Yeah,
With the assumption that we'll probably have about $29,000 fund balance. If that work doesn't get done by June 30th, it would be specifically earmarked to carry over and do that. So that's where that falls. Storage shed maintenance, that one is what it is. Legal fees, we had increased. Right now, it seems like we're on track with that number, so I kept that level. So we will have audits going forward, so I do have a line item for our audit. We are contracted for the current year for $12,000. Hopefully it will not go up, but it is not a guarantee, obviously, so I did budget $14,000 for the audit for the following year.
are we then going, since this is gonna be annual, should we abandon the audit reserve?
So my next line item,
Okay.
I zero, I did not fund a
Okay.
reserve. And the other thought being, there's, I'll tell you exactly, I think there's 12,000. Let's see, where is our? So there's 10,500. So between the two audits that are going to be completed, we're going to be 24,000.
Yeah.
We had earmarked 15,000 that was raised, plus the 10 is 25, so it covers
Good,
our two,
good.
covers our two audits that
And
are
then
being
that,
completed.
then this will be going forward.
Correct, and that'll just be a line item.
Yep.
That reserve will be eliminated,
Okay.
once we get our billing for those reserves.
Okay,
Zoning permits, we typically keep that the same as far as the dollar amounts. Miscellaneous, income, I went back to what it was, or I level funded that. And I did not anticipate any depot reserve just because we're probably gonna have that fund.
okay. Now, I will ask, and then actually, Chris, do you want to go first? Were there any specific asks that you had for zoning? Okay, then I would ask that we increase something for new file cabinets, because when, not if, when we finally get the records retention projects done, we need file cabinets. A fireproof file cabinet, a 4-drawer file cabinet, fireproof file cabinet is anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. So if we, I have to look into the statute to see, because we have paper records, whether we're required or wouldn't it be a nice thing if you had fireproof cabinets?
So what about this thought for this coming
Yes.
budget? Our village contingency reserve is a little over 26,000.
I was thinking about that.
So with the other increases that we've talked about, if trustees vote, we use, so say you needed 2 and you got the 3,000, that's 6,000. So you'd still be leaving over 20,000 in your reserve. And it's still projected to go.
I thought about that, and I'm okay with that for the file cabinets, but we're also gonna need some other work here. I even if it's a small amount, I'd like to put in $2,000 somewhere.
So I think village office makes.
Yeah, it's half a penny, but put in 2,500. This room down here we're gonna try to make this be the space that all current records are kept.
Let me ask a question. Is there no advantage to converting them all to electronic? And
No, for our size, it's gonna be way more work and expense to start digitizing records. We do
no, I
not,
don't mean digitizing. I just mean, basically scanning into, a thumb drive.
that would be digitizing. You would have to have a way of saying, here's where it is and here's how you
Yep.
retrieve it. So that probably would not work for us.
Okay.
Right, and-
We
and
might
part-
have a lot of it on digital places, but, if the internet crashes because of some catastrophe.
Well, I mean.
You still
the
have to have
internet
your
doesn't
paper
crash
records.
on a thumb drive.
No,
Yeah, but
And part of what Mary is talking about too is more of the current stuff, because I have stuff at my house right now, Lori has stuff at her house, Mary used to have stuff at her house. So the file cabinets that are gonna be in here would be more for the current, the last 18 months worth of bank records and payroll, then kind of move from there. And the copier is gonna go in there, so we'll likely need a table.
and
things like that.
eventually we're gonna need file cabinets upstairs. I would encourage you to go back to the records retention policy that we adopted 7 or 8 months ago, that lists pages and pages of what you have to keep and when. And it's not fun, but
we
it's
need,
a responsibility that we're
we
saddled
need
with.
fireproof cabinets for all of this.
I do not yet know.
The state of Vermont recommends it.
I thought they would.
They didn't say it's
I don't think it's
necessary, but it's
necessary, it's
covered
certainly a
your-
recommendation.
So what we could probably do is do a combination.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right, so you could get one really good fighter, maybe on the larger side.
Yeah.
Determine what your priority records would be.
Yeah.
Use that for those, and then have the normal file cabinets for the other ones.
Yeah. So it is going to be an expense that we incur over time, but there's not,
Is it worth establishing one of those funds that we did for other things?
No,
I don't think for that it is, I
No.
think if we get into the habit of maybe, you know, the first one is gonna be the biggest, so say we bought 2 or 3.
Yeah.
You're gonna have the big lump sum, so maybe it's a part and parcel, so, you know, I just put 2,000 extra in the village office line. So maybe we use that 2,000 plus 3,000 from the reserve. Then maybe the following year, we only purchase 1, so it's 2,500 just from the village office.
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of go from there, because once you have several, those will last virtually forever.
Yeah.
So a reserve for that would be, because you're not gonna be replacing them every 5 or 10 years.
So you're talking about a couple of these here.
Right.
we may end up with 5 or 6, depending on how much we have to keep.
Because there's rollover, you're just taking records out.
Correct.
Yep.
But again, go back to that records retention policy and you'll see there's a number of things that do have to be kept in perpetuity. And so those things are something that wouldn't be downstairs, but eventually we have to have a whole plan and
This is a
Process.
policy this board passed.
yes, we did some months ago, we were required to do so. Anyway, that's all I have.
Yeah, okay, right.
I think we covered.
In terms of your little notation about increase for the chair of the trustees, I wholeheartedly think that that would be a fair thing to do, and speaking on behalf of Mary, because she can't get
No.
herself a raise.
No.
I know how much work she does.
Well,
No.
and see, that's where I'm careful too, because it's not,
We didn't put that
it's,
in.
no, I had
Yeah.
just, I had
Giving,
put,
giving the chair a bigger,
I would definitely be in favor of that.
and it's not even a married situation. It's a board chair, much like it's a village treasurer, much like it's a village clerk.
Right.
Because if I left tomorrow, the new treasurer still has to do all the same stuff that I'm
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
If Mary is done in 3 years and the new chair still has
1
new
year.
responsibilities, I'm gonna say good. You know, the new chair will still have added responsibilities going forward.
And I will say that, we'll talk about this in future meetings, but it would be great to find some way to cultivate the talent. We've got enormous talent within our population. And it would be great to find a way to incent that talent to get involved and do some service. Most of this job, as you all know, is volunteer, and we do it because we love this village. But the demands on our time are just getting more and more. And especially the technology part of it. You now have to do virtually everything on a web or a computer. You don't do paper filings of things anymore. So it is a lot of work, but it's, in my opinion, it's something we do as citizens.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Chris, you said,
did you have anything you'd like to put on the wish list?
Well, as we discussed, I'd like to get that back instead of stairs.
We-
Nice facility, if they can't use it, I don't know why.
I don't either. Let me ask that question.
I'd like to have it.
What's up there?
You want,
There's a bathroom
There's a
upstairs.
bathroom. Oh, okay.
but we can't use, whatever we.
yeah, I'd say Norm.
Okay.
Norm, look at it.
Let's look at it.
well, we're about to move into some improvements for
We are.
our buildings, so
Thank you.
it might nestle right into that
But
one.
it could be something very simple.
That's a
It
good
could
thought.
be something very simple.
It could be, yeah.
We hope, but, yeah, not necessarily happen.
Right.
Okay.
That's-
Any other-
So did,
Hold on.
sorry.
That was decommissioned a number of years ago because of frost, frozen pipes and all this.
Okay.
So it was just shut down, but maybe things are different now. Worth looking into.
Thank you, Matthew. Ray had a comment or a question.
to stop sharing.
Yeah, did we settle on how much we're going to increase Mary's stipend?
I don't want it to be called mine.
Well,
No.
So what we can
The
do,
chair, the
the
chair's
chair's
stipend,
stipend.
the trustee, it's called trustee fees, right?
correct.
Okay,
So
so fee.
what I would do is, as I'm working through the budget, I will, because what I'm going to do, as I did last year, I'm gonna send out 2 to 3 scenarios.
Yes,
Of, okay, if we do it this way, the increase to the tax would be this, this, and this. 2 or 3, depending on how wide of a spread I get. Within those, I can put different dollar amounts going forward based on what the current trustee fee is for the flat fee. And then it would say, okay, an increase of X would go to the chair. So the chair would have X, the other 4, members, trustees would have 1.
So, yeah, okay.
But if you have a dollar amount in mind, then I can certainly take that under
It's
consideration.
$3,000.
Yeah.
And probably more. Frankly.
I would do it more like an algebra equation too. If we're getting X, they should get 3X.
Right, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that takes any personnel.
Yes.
right, because like I said, same thing with talking about the treasurer and the clerk. It's not, it happens to be me at this point in time, but it's not always going to be me.
But the obligation of hours, responsibility, and skills needed for clerking, secretary, treasurer, bookkeeping
Chair,
It's high.
are so high. But the number of hours,
Yes.
quite honestly, for the chair is higher than the needs for the rest of us.
yeah,
At some point, the board should consider, much like we've done with the Treasurer Act for the treasurer position, a zoning act for the zoning position, an info act for that the chair would monitor. We should consider, and this might be another project to look into, next year, getting some, I guess, technology policy in place so that whether it be a laptop or whether it be a email, that we have email addresses for positions so that when there is turnover, another trustee can pick up and have that history there too. I'm not exactly sure how that goes, but I'm sure people could advise us
well,
on how
what you
that
would
works.
probably do in that scenario, you probably wouldn't want. So I'll use Tara. So for example, if you did trustee Lowry at villagenorthbennington.org, okay? So she would have a designated email. If she were to leave, that would be stored in the cloud. So if there was ever a Freedom of Information Act filed, the webmaster, whoever monitors, would be able to pull those records.
Right,
But if, John Smith walked in, he doesn't necessarily want to have,
Okay.
so he would then be John Smith at,
right.
and then you would each have that. The chair, the info app makes sense for the chair because if somebody's trying to find out general information, that goes to the chair, but you could have the discussion going forward, but I think then you need to have the discussion about, do you want to have, the smaller Chromebooks for each trustee? I don't know what Bennington does,
I don't know, but I think that's not for this budget,
But possibly.
but as we look at projects to get into over the next year, maybe look at that, maybe look at what a real webmaster type of thing would do.
Yep.
Because right now, it's the chair that kind of makes sure things come and go, or whoever is the chairperson of a committee. And just food for thought to think about how can we make a continuous improvement on our technology?
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that I'm tired of all the spam that I get on the North Bennington.
You mean
Yeah.
like VLCT stuff?
No, I mean
No.
like all the fake phishing and stuff that happens, where Mary is telling me I need to
Right.
have a conversation with
And
her.
again, yeah, and this is what I don't know, if there was a, I don't know what you call it, if there was a webmaster, I don't know what, I don't know I don't know how you do this, but if there was somebody in charge of all technology, whether they could filter that out.
Because I don't get that from any of my other emails. I just from North Bennington, Google, whatever it is.
Yeah, so the reason that happens, to make a very long story very short, is when all of our emails, I'm treasurer at Matt, all of that is listed. So anybody and everybody all over the world can go to villagenorthbennington.org and find all those email addresses. And like Matt said, it's phishing. Can I get somebody to interact with me? Can I get somebody to click on something?
Right.
The only way to avoid a percentage, it's not even all of it, is to have another firm monitor,
Yeah.
which is exorbitantly
It
expensive.
is, okay.
I work in the banking industry, obviously, we have filters for everything. I couldn't even imagine what the cost is for those, but we still get them. We have meetings constantly about, what to look for and, all those types of things. So even with the most advanced filters, the hackers are I don't even want to say one step ahead, because it's multi-steps ahead.
Yeah.
You just have to educate your board.
Yes. But as long as it's not going into a person's,
EPN for the village?
Somebody would have to look into that. I don't know how, reliable, because if you're in multiple places,
Right.
it's tough to say.
Yeah, I don't know how you establish.
Yeah.
well, just think of other projects that perhaps could be done over the next year or two, and always think about what can we do a little bit better? What can we leave the next generation with that's a little bit better? I don't see a need for an executive session unless somebody else wishes to do so.
Nope, that's it for now. So my plan, like I said, over the weekend, I will send out 2 to 3 scenarios, with budget amounts and what they would do to the tax rate. I think obviously those are the 2 biggest questions.
Can
So-
I sit with you and look at that before it goes out to everybody? Just in case I had a question, or
Yes,
if not, then don't worry about it.
yes, I should be able to,
I think we can knock it off in half an hour.
yes. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I'm around all weekend, so it's a
Okay.
matter of between this and warrants and
yeah,
all the other
yeah, you
items.
tell me,
But yes,
okay. And we will have,
Motion to adjourn?
we will have the agenda for the regular meeting, that will be out,
Okay.
probably in another day, probably tomorrow.
We're giving the treasurer and secretary raises in this budget.
I have it in
Those are-
there, yes,
yes.
and then, based on how the percentages go, then I'll be able to
Yeah.
go. But yes, I am budgeting an increase for
Yeah.
the treasurer and the clerk, which also is tied into the secretary and the bookkeeper.
Yeah, I'm
it
sorry,
falls
I'm
under
looking for,
Yeah.
not the secretary.
Yeah,
They're the same person.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
the positions, we do have increases for the positions,
correct.
Excellent, thank you.
okay. So,
They all earn it.
absolutely. 7:58, is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I'm second.
Take that as a.
there's Matt who's made.
Ray really wants the second.
Yes, Ray made the second, so we are all in favor.
Yeah.
Aye, you can tell by the beating of feet to the door. So, good night all, thank you for everyone's time, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Appreciate it.